And welcome, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
I mean,
And here we are. All right. We're into the creation of man at this point. So here we go. We're just going to finish up, though. This is all on the sixth day, and I think it's significant that the land creatures essentially were created on the sixth day along with man. And I think that sort of symbolizes the connection we have with other, terrestrial animals, right? Vayas Elohim et chayat haaretz lemina. The Lord made the beasts of the earth according to its species, ve'et habehema lemina, and the cattle according to its species, ve'et kol remes ha'adama leminehu, and all those creeping things according to their species. Vayar Elohim kitov, the God saw how good it was. So. Vayas. This is an interesting thought on the part of that Rashi is introducing for us. And again, I think these are sort of chapter headings for meditation, right? So Vayas. So what do we mean by he made? So, for example, there's an example of this word asa in terms of braids and things like that. So the it's not bria, which is creation out of nothing, but yas is to somehow manipulate or make in that sense, right? I think it has the idea of manipulation. Tikname, he arranged them, right? Or he fixed them, betzivionam, according to their pleasure, betikunam, fully developed, uve kumatam, and according to their full height. So the idea primarily here is that when they were created in these 7 days of creation, they were fully formed. But I really love this idea of betzivionam, right? That's what they wanted, right? We have this word eretz tzvi, which mean like a delightful land. And of course, the word tzvi often refers to a deer or a stag or something like that. And I think partially because of how beautiful they are. Uh, and uh, and just the idea that there's an essential level of pleasure in being created in the way they were. I think this sort of introduces a whole new kind of idea regarding creation. So that is, again, for me, this has literary significance. Vayomer Elohim, and now God said, Naaseh Adam, let us make man. And Rashi is going to give us quite a bit about that. B'tzalmenu, in our image, kidmutenu, in our likeness, vayirdu, and they should have power. And I was meditating on this root rada, resh daled hey, because it has this idea of asserting power. So you have the idea of subjugation, but the word merid, to rebel, also, of course, is connecting to asserting power. Bidgat hayam, over the fish of the sea, uva of hashamayim, over the birds of the heaven, uvab hema, and over the cattle, uva chol haaretz, and over all the earth, uva chol haremes haromes al haaretz, and over every creeping thing that creeps on earth. So interesting. This idea of power, and which I feel automatically implies responsibility. That if you have power, you're now responsible. So, Naaseh Adam. This is a beautiful, beautiful Rashi. In vatnuto shel Hakadosh Baruch Hu lamadnu mikam. We learn from here the humility of the Holy One, blessed be He. In what sense? Lefi, on account that Sheha'adam hu bidmut hamalachim, that human beings are in the same form, likeness of angels. Vayitkan uvo, and they would be jealous of him because man and angels look identical. Lefichach, and for this reason, in other words, God took into consideration that since human beings are in the same form as angels, for this reason, nimlach bahem, he consulted them, he consulted the angels. Ukeshehu dan et hamalachim, and when he judges kings, hu nimlach b'pamalya shelo, he also he he takes into account, he consults, with his heavenly court, with his court. Shekain Matzinu, because we found Ba'achav regarding the king Ahab of Israel, She'amar lo Micha, this prophet Micah said to Ahab, Ra'iti et Hashem Yoshev al Kiso, I saw the Lord seated on his throne, V'chol tzva hashamayim umdim alav mimino umismolo, and the entire host of heaven stood by him on his right and on his left. V'chiyesh, and so this is regarding judging Ahab. V'chiyesh yamin usmol lefanav. Wait a second. Does the concept of right and left make any sense in God's presence? Ela elu maiminim lischut, but what it was saying is that those that were standing on the right were arguing in favor, simply that they were, in other words, this concept of standing on the right side is to be understood as arguing in favor. Misma'ilim lechova, and those that were standing on the left, we need to understand that statement in the Tanakh as meaning to accuse him. V'chein, and likewise we have a statement that says, B'gzeirat irin pitkama, right, in the edict of angels, Gzeira, edict, irin, angels, pitkama is the matter, uva ma'amar kedishin, and again, and in the statement of holy ones, right, she'ilta, the question is decided. So this idea of our Creator, right, to the degree that we understand or can speak of our Creator, is consulting with other beings, right, in terms of the decisions made. Again, as I mentioned so often, this is food for thought, food for meditation as to what the significance is in that God does this. I mean, we have a little bit of a clue that it's, in a sense, role modeling, but also, so let's keep going. We'll go on with this one, right? Afkan b'pamalya shalo natal rishut. So here too, in his divine court, with his court, natal rishut, he took permission. Amar lahem, he said in this example of the creation of human beings. Amar lahem, he said to them, Yesh ba'elyonim kidmuti, we have in the upper regions, we have according to my image, im ein kidmuti b'tachtonim, so that if there is not something that resembles my image on the lower levels, in other words, in the physical world, excuse me, hare yesh kin'ah b'ma'aseh bereshit, there will be jealousy, literally, in the work of creation. So again, these are very subtle, ideas to think about it, about sort of the idea of a divine balance, right? Or a balance, a universal balance that needs to take place, and that in some senses, human beings represent a balance of the higher levels of the universe. So again, to me, primarily, this is stating the power of human beings, but also their responsibility. And as I believe we've mentioned before, that our role should be that of stewards of the world. Na'aseh Adam, let us make man. Af al pi shelo siyuhu biyitzirato, despite the fact that they did not assist him, this is the angels, of course, with his formation and forming, shaping human beings. V'yesh makom la'apikorsim l'radot. There's that word, rada, but meaning here to rebel. And the fact that it says, let us, right? So, number one, the angels did not assist God in this formation of human beings. But not only that, the fact that it uses the first person plural gives apikorsim, in other words, heretics, an argument right from the text to argue that there's more than one reshut, that there's more than one ultimate divine being. Lo nimna hakatuv, the scripture did not see a reason to prevent milalamed derech eretz, from teaching, an opportunity to teach decency, human decency, derech eretz, umidat enva, and the quality of humility. So obviously what this is saying is that even though it comes at a high price, the idea of common human decency and a sense of humility are that important. That important. Sheyeh Hagadol, specifically, that one who is of greater stature, right, with status, Nimlach, consults, Venotel Rishut, and gets permission, Min Hakatan, from the minor, from one who is of less status. Very interesting, right? That power isn't there just to be grabbed, that power places a responsibility to make sure that there's equity, that there is balance, that there's, you try to avoid jealousy. Obviously, people have a natural inclination to be jealous of people who they see as more powerful or more wealthy or whatever, right? And by doing these kinds of things, by acting in a humble way and in trying to act in a decent way, not to see oneself as privileged, etc., that this is very foundational to how the world can operate in a peaceful manner. Ve'im katav e'ese adam, whereas if it had not said na'ase adam, let us make man, but had it said e'ese adam, I will make man, lo lamadnu, we would not have learned shayam daber im beit timor, we would not have learned that he was discussing this with his court. Ella imatzmo, we would have said he's saying this to himself, as it were. Uchuvato. However, the answer to the katav, the tzido, the answer to the heretics is written right next to it, because it goes on to say, Vayivra Elohim. There it clearly states God created, third person singular, Vayivra et Adam. He created man, v'lo katav v'yivra'u. It does not say they created. So the language of what he's saying, of course, is that the language of the Torah takes care, and the fact that the verb is in the third person singular makes it clear that when it says let us make, etc., it's not to be taken literally, but understood as trying to teach something else, that it has another purpose to it. Going on. B'tsalmenu, right, in our image. B'dfus shelanu. In other words, the fus is like a die in the sense of a shape, right, a form. Like a diffus is a word for a press, like a printing press, right? This idea, we're going to develop that even further, like how you make coins, where you use a die and you impress it on material. So, in other words, basically, the shape of the angels is what he's saying. Kidmutenu, right? And this is, we were saying, in our likeness. This is interesting because Rashi gives us a better understanding of what this likeness is about. He says la'avin, meaning to understand, haskil, and to gain intelligence, right? There's two elements of learning. right? One is understanding something, but the other is to grow in intelligence, that one can become wiser in the process. So that's the kitmutenu. Vayirdu, and let them rule bidgat hayam, or have, dominion over the fish of the sea. Yesh balashon hazeh, in this particular expression, right, of using this verb rada, resh dalad hey, lashon ridui, it has the connotation of to rule, velashon yerida, but there's also this idea of yarad, because it says yirdu. So a different root, yarad, is to lower, to somehow either to lower or to become lower, etc. So zacha, if he is worthy, rode bachayot uvahapemot, right? He will have dominion over the wild animals and the domesticated, the cattle. Lo zacha, but if he is not worthy of it, ne'esa yirud lifnehem, he will be abased before them. V'achaya moshelet bo, and the animals will control him. Going on, so Vayivra Elohim, God created et ha'adam b'tzalmo, man in his image, b'tzelem Elohim bara'oto, in the image of God he created him, zachar unekeva bara'otam, male and female he created them. Going on here, Vayivra Elohim et ha'adam b'tzalmo, God created man in his image. Bitfus, in a mold, suilo, that was made for his purpose. In other words, it made for the purpose of creating man. Shakol nivra b'ma'amar, because everything was created in a statement, right? In the ma'amar, the statements of God. Vahu, however, human beings were created b'yadayim, with hands. Again, another issue to meditate on, exactly what is the idea going on here. Is it saying that there's a level of existence of human beings? Well, certainly on the most general level, it means there's something unique about human beings. And again, nivra bayadayim, right? In other words, that sometimes is an expression to mean in actuality, something like that. But again, the idea of hands being controlled, in other words, that this was a very controlled act on the part of God. However, let's take a look. He's got a proof text here. So everything else was created simply with God's statement. But this involved something additional, is what we can certainly say. Shene'emar, as it states, and this is from Psalm, I believe it's Psalm 139, Va'teshet alai kapecha, you placed your hands upon me. So that's the quotation, right? Kapayim, or hands. Ne'esa b'chotam umatbea ha'asuya, so he was made with a stamp and with an again, this is like a kamatbea, like a coin, ha'asuya ayadei roshem, like a coin which is made by means of a mark, right? So there's the die that you have, and from this die you have you can create the coins. And again, I think this is suggesting the relationship and a certain basic equality that every human being has with the other. In other words, if we're all like coins, the idea of coins is that they all look the same, right? And even though we wind up as being individuals, right, and unique, every single one of us, nevertheless, there's a certain level in which we need to be aware of our commonality. He gives us a French word, shekorin, and here this is the word coin, right, in French. V'chein, and likewise, hu omer, it says, tithapech kachomer chotam. It is changeable like the clay in of a seal, right? So again, this particular statement, I'm not sure where this comes from, whether it sounds pretty almost like something from the prophets, perhaps, because they don't give you the reference here. But the idea of the malleability, so to speak, of the human being. At least that's what I'm picking out from it. B'Tselem Elohim bara'oto, in other words, in the image of God, he created him. Piresh lecha, right? So he explains to you, she'oto tselem hametukan lo, that image that was set aside for him, that was prepared for him, tselem diokon yotzrohu, that is, so diokon is like the word icon, right? Of yotzro would be the one who formed him, right? That it has that kind of image. Now we know that God, the divine, the creator, has no physical image. And that's why we have the fact of the angels, which are so connected to the divine and represent, I believe, a nexus point with the divine into this physical world. Zachar Nekeva bara'utam, male and female, he created them. Ulahalan hu omer, but later on, we know it says, Vayikach achat mitzalotav, that he took one of his ribs, possibly. We have discussed this idea of tsela, because in the creation of the tabernacle, the word tsela is used to mean side, right, etc. But what's referring here is to the creation of Eve and how, it was the first, as some wit once said, it was the first example of an operation under anesthesia. At any rate, B'midrash Agadah, right? So, etc. B'midrash Agadah. So, in the Midrash Agadah, in the interpretive and legendary material, it says Shebaro Shnei Partsufim. This was again one of the interpretations of Tzil Otav, that he originally created human beings with two faces. In other words, as a hermaphrodite. Bria Rishona, in other words, initially created human beings as a hermaphrodite, V'achar Chelkam, and that this taking from his sella was actually taking one of his sides, right? Afterwards, he divided and again, the idea here of male and female acting as a unity. Upshuto, he says that the straightforward interpretation, shel mikra, not the agadic or midrashic interpretation of the scripture, kan, so mikra, kan hodiacha shenivru shnehem. Here he tells you that both male and female were created. Beshishi, on the sixth day, velo piresh lecha ketzad briatan, but he doesn't explain to you exactly how they were created. So, in other words, when he says male and female, he's simply speaking in chapter headings, or piresh lecha makom acher, but he specifies exactly how they were created, male and female, in another place. And this might be a good place for us to stop for today. And we will, let me put this here, and for next time, God willing, and we will catch this passage next time when we pick up Genesis again. So I'm going to stop the share. Okay. And invite you to comment if you have any comments.
Yeah, I do. Was God supposed to? I believe that God is made in our image, so I think God has a head, two hands, 2 feet. I mean, that's what I think He is. I mean, I'm just picturing Him as as a human being like we are, but I don't know.
But that would not be Judaism. In Judaism, God has no physical form. All right. So and remember, Rashi stated explicitly that we look like angels, that angels also have the form that we take. So how to make sense of this, um, Harlan, is to say that God is capable, that our physical body allows us to operate in a certain way. In other words, we have hearing, we have sight, we have the ability to taste, to feel, to smell, etc. And that it doesn't seem appropriate, but nevertheless, that in some senses, God has these capabilities. We have to speak metaphorically because we can't really describe the activities of God in that kind of specific way. But we could say, that God sees and hears and is aware of the behaviors of human beings. And of course, regarding the sacrifices, there's a place, I think right after Noah, where Noah offers up a sacrifice, that it speaks again metaphorically about God inhaling, the aroma of it. But that I think is simply metaphorically saying that, smells have a tremendous effect on us emotionally. And to say that the pleasure that God had in seeing the level of appreciation that human beings had for the divine was a source of very, very deep gratification, etc. And again, all these kinds of statements I'm making are, we say in Hebrew, kiviyachol, as if, because to speak in this kind of way about God isn't accurate. It's not really giving you the right, gives you an illusion, a hint, but not more than that. But
Hmm.
God has no form. Okay.
Hmm. They say that when man was made, there was twins. There wasn't from a bone, but
That's what
man
I was saying. Yeah, yeah.
was that. That's another theory. I don't know.
Yeah, no, no, no. That's what we were reading about. That's what Rashi was saying. That when the initial human being was created, it was created as an hermaphrodite. In other words, a man woman.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
and that they were joined at the spine, so to speak. They were facing opposite directions. And what God
Oh,
did was split down their backs and then turned them around so that they could face each other.
wow.
So, yes.
So,
Well, again, this is very symbolically, there's a lot of symbolism involved in all of this, stuff like that. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording here.